Greetings everyone, Richard Fulmer here, and welcome to another edition of Richard's Rock Rambles. So today's episode, in fact the next two episodes, are ones that I've really been looking forward to. We're going to have a look at that great Australian iconic rock band. You can call them hard rock, you can call them blues rock, you can call them boogie rock. Some even call it heavy metal, although that I think is stretching it a bit. AC/DC, iconic band, changed the face of rock for many. Started out very low key, and they just built and built, and they became massive. Huge in South America, huge in Australia, in the UK, in the States. Very humble guys, hardworking guys, a real people's band. So what I've decided to do is to split it into two episodes. The first episode, I'm going to have a look at the Bon Scott era. Bon Scott, of course, the late Bon Scott, unfortunately, he was the original singer, with them for quite a number of years before alcohol addiction and what have you got the better of him. And then in the second episode, we're going to have a look at the Brian Johnson era, which was from about 1980 up until the present day. Yeah, they're still going. Many people had written them off, but surprised everybody with a return. So we're going to have a look at the albums that I have from the Bon Scott era, and we're going to check out a few other things and discuss this great band who I defy anybody to put on an AC/DC album and to sit still. It's impossible. They're just a great party band. So let's jump in. Australian band formed in Sydney in 1973. The first sort of lineup was Angus Young and Malcolm Young, the two young brothers, the two mainstays of the band, the guys that the sort of nucleus that everybody formed around, came from a very musical family. Their folks were into music. I think Angus took up the guitar a little later. His brother Malcolm was the first one to really be in bands and what have you. So you've got Malcolm Young on rhythm guitar, probably one of the best rhythm guitarists you'll ever see. Right up there with the James Hetfields of the world and Tony Iommi's and what have you. I think Malcolm Young pretty much rewrote the book on rhythm guitar. And then his brother Angus on lead guitar, also plays a bit of rhythm sometimes. They have a dual rhythm thing going. And Malcolm also does backing vocals sometimes for the choruses. Then on bass you had two guys. You had Mark Evans, and he was there from 75 to 77. And then you had Cliff Williams, who was from 77 up until today. He's rejoined the band. He actually left the band. He came back for the reunion, and he was on bass as well. And Phil Rudd, he was the original drummer, hard-hitting drummer, solid with the bass. The two of them, him and Cliff Williams, just lock in. And that's part of what makes AC/DC such a successful band, is having that really rock solid rhythm section, which I think is so important if you're a blues rock band, or any rock band really. You know, you want to have that backbeat and you want to have that solid wall behind you so that you can play around. And then of course Bon Scott was on vocals. So let's jump in and see the albums, see what I can show you. Some of these albums became massive. Some took a little longer over time, but I think pretty much all of the early albums are either gold or platinum. So that's pretty big sales. So the first one we're going to check out is High Voltage. I just love that cover. Old Angus. Angus Young would become the sort of poster boy for the band. Pretty much on all the album covers. And that was because he was the focal point of them when they were live. You know, he's such an energetic player. They say sometimes when he was running around on stage, he was doing the equivalent of a marathon. And yeah, amazing stuff. So the tracks on here, It's a Long Way to the Top if you want to rock and roll, which is a very true saying. That was a great boogie track to start off. And Bon Scott in full voice. Such an amazing voice. You know, it took me a while to get used to his voice because it's very gravelly, very out there, a bit screechy, but it worked within the band context. Rock and Roll Singer, The Jack, which is a really good track. I think that they played live quite a bit. Interesting lyrics to that song. Livewire, TNT, Can I Sit Next to You, Girl, Little Lover, She's Got Balls. That's another really great track. And the title track, High Voltage, with some amazing riffs from Malcolm Young. He was the engine behind this band. He just kept them going, you know, that constant riffing, in-your-face stuff. So these are the Sony Remasters, which came out a number of years back. They don't really have much in the way of, in fact, there aren't any bonus tracks, but what they have done, the remastering is really good. So this album originally came out in 76. See if there's anything in the booklet that I can show you. There's a picture of the guys there. There's old Angus. And there's Angus having a drink of milk. He was probably the only guy in the band who didn't drink, really. He was addicted to his milkshakes and what have you, which is quite strange for a rock band. But I think Bon Scott kind of made up for that. He drank quite a bit. So that was High Voltage, a great starting point. This was released in Australia with a different name. I think it was TNT. And then re-released as High Voltage Australia, and then this one for the international release. I think that's how it worked. A great album anyway. Then we move on to an album which also from 76, so they were quite prolific in those early years. Some people don't dig this album, but I think this has got a lot going for it. Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. Strange album cover there. That's the back. So what do we have on here? Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, the title track, which is interesting lyrics as well. Sung really well with Bon Scott. He had a lot of this humor in his voice, had a real character. You could see that on stage as well. Love at First Feel, Big Balls, Rocker, Problem Child. That was another big hit of this album. Great up-tempo rocker. There's going to be some rockin', which is more of a rock and roll feel to it, sort of harking back to the 50s. Ain't No Fun, Waiting Around to Be a Millionaire. Ride On, which is a slow blues number. They didn't do too many of those, but I thought that worked really well with this album. And Squealer. Yeah, interesting lyrics to that one too. You get the booklet as well. This is also a remaster. There he is, Bon Scott in full cry. He was a lot older than the rest of the guys. He actually joined the band. He was their chauffeur, and they were looking for a singer, and he said, well, guys, I can sing. And then the next thing you know, he's famous. Let's see if there's anything else. There we go. There's the man again with his mic, and there's old Angus. Those two guys would become the mainstay of the band in the early days, the main focal points for the band in any case. So that was Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. And then a really great album came out. And this one was from 77. And this one is called Let There Be Rock. This album would, I think, really start the ball rolling for AC/DC. They were starting to get noticed now, not only in Australia. They went over to the UK, had a few early tours there, and they blew people away with their energy on stage. So on here we had Go Down, Dog Eat Dog. That's another great track. Let There Be Rock. That was one of the anthemic tracks, which would become a huge crowd favorite and which had to be played. I love that track, especially the stop-start drumming of Full Rudd. Get into the chorus and it just kicks off. Bad Boy Boogie, Problem Child, that's another one that became a big hit. Overdose, Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be, and then possibly their biggest hit, the one that everybody knows, even the casual listener to AC/DC, Whole Lotta Rosie, a song about a rather large lady that I think Bon Scott got involved with. Produced by Vanda and Young. All these early ones were produced by Vanda and Young. Really good productions, I thought. And the Sony have actually done a really good job with these remasters. That's the inside there. There's old Bon Scott again. And there's Angus with his custom SG, or customary SG, I should say. He pretty much played an SG, Gibson SG, his whole career. I don't think I've ever seen him play anything else. And as Malcolm's also had his own particular guitar that he's played, the rhythm guitar. I think it's also a Gibson. I might be wrong. Yeah, some great live shots as well. So this one was a great album, Let There Be Rock. A lot of hits. Excellent band. And then we come to probably my favorite from the early era, my favorite AC/DC, and that's Power Age. Little Angus with the wires hanging out there. And looking quite evil there at the back with that naughty grin with old... Some great shots inside here as well. Rock and Roll Damnation, first track, excellent. My favorite track, Down Payment Blues, all about not having any cash. And you know, early days of bands, you're not exactly rolling in it, so it was probably quite relevant. Gimme a Bullet, Riff Raff, another great track. Sin City, I was actually listening to this last night. It's such a good album. Gone Shooting's also good. Kicked in the Teeth, great track. You can hear on here how tight the rhythm section was, as I was mentioned, and Malcolm Young adding the rhythm guitar just gave you a complete package. And then Angus was able to play all his leads, his crazy frenetic leads over the top. There's another great shot of the two of them. So that was Power Age. And then we get to the first of the two albums that were produced, or I think 3 albums actually, produced by Robert John Matlanger, our very own South African Robert John Matlanger, who became a famous producer with a lot of other people. Def Leppard, Hysteria became his big album as well. I think he did Foreigner too, and a whole bunch of other albums. So this one would be the final one, unfortunately, Highway to Hell, to feature Bon Scott. Yeah, he wouldn't see much after this. He wouldn't be able to tour on the back of this. Went far too early. Really sad way that he died. I think it was hypothermia. He passed out in a car overnight in the UK, and because of the cold and what have you, next morning they found him dead. Really sad. But this is a kick-ass album. You can hear the production it's a lot crisper. It's a lot not so much of a rawness as the early albums. You can see they're trying to refine their sound here. I know Angus and Malcolm especially, who were having issues with Robert Matlanger later on, because he was a bit of a perfectionist and he liked to do things over and over and over. So you do one song and you do a million takes. You know, those guys just wanted to get in, do the take and get out. They were a live band. They didn't like the studio that much. So the big tracks on here, Highway to Hell, the title track, that's a great track. Girls Got Rhythm, you can read into that whatever you want. Walk All Over You, Touch Too Much, that's another great track. Beating Around the Bush, Shot Down in Flames, Get It Hot, If You Want Blood, Love Hungry Man, and the really brooding sort of evil track called Night Prowler. Yeah, that's also great, with some great vocals from Bon Scott. And I was really upset when he passed away. You know, as much as I enjoy the Brian Johnson era, I still preferred old Bon. He just had a way about him, you know, especially on stage, with his rapport with the audience, his humor. Just an all-round very humble guy, very nice guy. So that was Highway to Hell, the first Matlanger album. This did really well for them, and you could see their trajectory was starting to take off. There is an early live album which I want to mention, which is a great live album. This one came out in 1978, and this one is called If You Want Blood. And if you can see that, I love that cover with the guitar sticking into Angus, and there he is at the back with the guitar sticking out. Really clever. So they do all the early hits: Riff Raff, Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be, Bad Boy Boogie, The Jack, High Voltage, Let There Be Rock, Rocker. This thing just shunts. You just put this on and crank the volume up and let the neighbors worry about it. You know, a couple of them might leave. Let's see if there's anything now. This isn't the remastered, so there's not really much in the middle, just about the band and what have you. So that was the live album. Then there's the only AC/DC I have still on vinyl is this one here called 74 Jailbreak, which is there are a couple of covers on here. This is kind of an EP. There's only 5 tracks. They do a really cool version of Baby Please Don't Go, which of course has been done by a gazillion artists. Budgie, I think, is another band that's done it, a really good version. Jailbreak's on here, that's a good track. There's a great music video to go with Jailbreak. The guys in all their prison outfits and whatever. You Ain't Got a Hold on Me, Show Business, and Soul Stripper. It's not bad. It's not fantastic, but if you want to collect all the early stuff, then this is one to get as well. Then I was watching this last night, and it's just the energy those guys had on stage. You could not just sit in your seat. And this was filmed in Paris, and this was the 1979 Paris concert. That's called Let There Be Rock. And I think for a long time this was only available on video, and eventually this got put onto DVD, which I'm really thankful for. I think there's a remastered version of this. Is just the original that I have. And they play all the early hits as well as on here. A Whole Lot of Rosie, Let There Be Rock, and all the rest. And there's a couple of occasions towards the end of the concert where you see Angus running off to the side of the stage, and you're thinking, what's going on? He was actually getting oxygen because he used up so much. The guy is just literally drenched in sweat. As I said, they say you probably ran the equivalent of a couple of, marathons on stage running, because he doesn't stop. From the first track to the last, the guy's just like an Energizer bunny. You watch him and you think, and he's still playing lead while he's running around. That's the thing that blew my mind. Most guitarists, when they're doing the lead, they're concentrating, he's just going crazy. But the whole band was on fire. Malcolm in the back with his rhythm guitar, the rhythm section of Phil Rudd, and I forgot his name, Cliff Williams. Old age is terrible. And Cliff Williams locked in on the rhythm section, and of course Bon Scott, great front man, picking out the girls in the audience as he did. And there's a couple of interviews with him during the concert as well. There's one of Phil Rudd driving a car, Malcolm Young kicking a football around. Just cool stuff, no rock star pretension stuff. Great if you can get hold of this, it's worth it. Then this came out, I think, in the 90s, 1997. Bon Scott box set called Bonfire. Excellent. So in here, you had a really cool booklet like that. There's Bon Scott with Angus on his shoulders. They used to do that quite often. Lots of great shots. A lot of info. Okay, that was the latest singer. There's Angus again. What else did you get in this box? You got a CD called Volts, which was the early stuff, some live stuff on here. A lot of these tracks on here are the rough, what would go on to be Highway to Hell, but they hadn't quite worked out the tracks yet, so you get different versions of those tracks with different names. Then you get some live stuff. She's Got Balls, which is a really great track on here. That's in Bondi. So you get this CD. You get AC/DC Live from the Atlantic Studios. You get that as well. And that's got Live Wire, Problem Child, High Voltage, Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be. That's also very cool. And then you get the soundtrack to the DVD I mentioned. Let There Be Rock, the movie Live in Paris. This is a double CD. So this has got all the tracks from that concert. The Jack, Highway to Hell, Girls Got Rhythm, Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be, Sin City. So sometimes the quality of the sound, especially on that DVD, because it was originally video, is not that great. So if you have the CD, you can really get the full effect of that concert. Because live is where these guys really were the best. So what you also got with that box set is a great poster over there of Bon. Really cool. And I think you also got a key ring. I have that somewhere in the house, which came with a bottle opener with AC/DC written on it, which is quite apt, especially for Bon around that time. Last thing I want to mention, as far as Bon Scott era goes of AC/DC, is this book by Clinton Walker. It's called Highway to Hell, The Life and Times of AC/DC Legend Bon Scott. That's that one there. There are a number of books on AC/DC which I have, but this one specifically covers the Bon Scott era, his life, his early life, the different bands he was in before AC/DC, his addictions, you know, with alcohol and what have you, the womanizing, and then right up until his death, his sad ending. But it's really interesting. There are some black and white photographs in the middle. Really cool book. I found this one well put together. There's a shot of him in the studio there with it. He always had that grin on his face, like he was really enjoying it. That's the thing, you know. Some of these artists today, I think, are a bit too pretentious about themselves, and he kept it humble, kept himself grounded, and he knew his place within the band because Malcolm was the guy who ran the show, and he knew it. You know, even though it doesn't look like it on stage, Bon knew where he had to stand, although he does move around, but each guy had his own sort of area, although Angus was everywhere. He was the only guy that was just running around. So there we go. That's the first of two of AC/DC, the great Australian rock band. Next time we're going to have a look at the Brian Johnson era. He was there from the 80s, as I said, up until today. And there were a number of lineup changes during that time. And yeah, well, check you then. Have a good week. Take it easy. Like and subscribe down below if you enjoyed the video. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Cheers.